So I just want to first reach out and say we appreciate everyone taking the time to register and join us on this Zoom webinar. We've practiced this a few times and hope it goes smoothly, but if there's any technical glitches, please stick with us. We'd like to start with some introductions of city staff and the housing element consultants, and then we'll get started. My name is Jesse Brown. I'm a senior planner here with the city of Coronado. We also have Jane Thornton. She's an associate planner with the city of Coronado. Jane wants to say hi.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
And then we have Molly Mendoza from the consultant side.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
And then there's another consultant, Dave Barquist, who will be joining us in just a little bit. So that's who you will be hearing from today. But we wanted to first start with a fun little exercise for everyone participating in the workshop. So if everybody could just get out their cell phones, and then Molly will explain kind of what we are doing here. If you want to go ahead, Molly.
Yes, of course. Let me go ahead and share my screen for everyone. All right. Thanks, Jesse. So let's see, and I apologize, I have two screens here, so I might not be looking directly at you. But as everyone can see on the screen, we're going to be doing just some polling questions throughout the workshop. So to get started, we would like everyone to take out their phones, as Jesse mentioned, or you can also open a web browser and go ahead and type in what you see on the screen. So that's www.menti.com. And then once you log in, go ahead and type in the code 2932578, and that will log you into our poll. And I will give everyone some time to do so. So once you type in that code, you will be logged into the survey. And when you get to the first screen, go ahead and send us a heart or a thumbs up. And I think I see some coming in, just to let us know that you have accessed the poll. And I think I see about 20 or so attendees. So I will wait until we get a few more hearts and thumbs up, just to make sure that everyone has had some time to log into the poll here. So just some instructions. As we go through the questions, your results will be live, so they will show up on the screen here. Once you submit your response, you will not be able to submit another one. So please remember this, that when you are answering the questions, answer them as completely or to the best of your ability as possible before you hit submit. Once you do hit submit, you will be prompted to essentially wait, and you will not be able to submit another answer to the question. So I'm going to pause here, allow a little bit more time for people to join. I see we have some hearts and some thumbs up still rolling in. And our first two questions, they're just going to be simple questions to get everyone comfortable with the tool. So it looks like our hearts and our thumbs have paused. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to question number 1. So this first question is a multiple choice response. So go ahead and choose the answer that is the most appropriate to you. So how long have you lived in Coronado? If you've just moved, maybe that's less than 5 years. Maybe you grew up in Coronado. Maybe you're a lifelong resident here. So maybe 20 plus years or before the bridge was built. And if you don't live in Coronado, that's totally fine. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe you work here. Maybe you own a business. So go ahead and choose the I do not live in Coronado. And it looks like we have a lot of the lifers, 11 to 20 years in Coronado. Just a few less than 5 years. We're still getting some responses in. A couple that don't live in the city. Some in that 5 to 10 year range. All right, we'll spend a little bit more time here, just in case we're having some glitches. I know cell phones aren't the easiest sometimes. All right, looks like we have our responses in. And just a reminder that these responses will be recorded. So if at any point you wanted to come back and look at them, you are more than welcome to do so. So let's move on to question number 2. Are you a homeowner or a renter? So this one is also multiple choice. So choose the option that best applies to you. You can also choose more than one response. So maybe you own a home, and maybe you also own another home or property that you rent or lease to others. Maybe this is not applicable to you, and that's totally fine. It looks like we have so far majority homeowners on the call with some renters, and that's great. And responses are still kind of falling in. All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds here, but it looks like everyone has a hang of it. So I think with that, I will pass the presentation back to Jesse, and I just want to remind everyone that there will be a couple more polling questions throughout the workshop. And if for some reason you were not able to access menti.com, this will be live in the future. Oh, I'm sorry, this will be recorded. So in the future, if you want to go back and record your responses, you will be able to do so. So thanks, Jesse. I'll hand it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Molly. And thanks everyone for participating in that. It's fun to see the responses live and know who we're talking with. Anyway, here's our agenda for this evening. We hope to keep this to 1 hour so everyone can get back to their evening, whether you want to watch the debate or have dinner with your family or whatever. So we want to respect that. But we'll start with an overview of the housing element, such as, what is it and why is the city going through the process to update it? Next, we will discuss demographics and housing in Coronado, followed by the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. And then we will end it with the next steps in the update process, and also devote some time to answer any of your questions. For the questions portion, we will be using the Q&A feature here in Zoom. So if you can look at the various tabs that Zoom offers you, you'll see the Q&A tab. And this is where we would like you to type in any questions you may have related to the housing element at any point during the presentation. You can do it now, you can do it at the end. The cool thing is this also has a feature where you can upvote or like questions that other people have asked, and it will kind of push those up to the top. So we'll see those first, basically. And if there are questions that we don't get to, or if you'd like to follow up on, my contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation, and I'd be happy to discuss any of this with anybody who's interested. So tonight we hope to achieve these goals shown here by explaining what and why we are updating the housing element, to get input on future housing goals and policies, and we will outline additional opportunities where we hope to get more community and stakeholder input. Before we get into that though, what is a housing element? We wanted to do another quick Mentimeter poll. So if you could get your cell phones out, and I think Molly's gonna take over the screen here, and we'll ask you this next question.
All right, let me pull my screen back up for everyone. Apologize for the delays. We're doing some switching back and forth. All right, so let's move on to question number 3. So as I change my slide, I think everyone's phone screen should switch over to our next question. And this is, what are 3 words that describe what you enjoy most about the Coronado community? And so there should be 3 spaces for responses on your screen. So please fill those out with a couple of words, or maybe a phrase that describe your favorite things or what you enjoy most about Coronado. Your results should appear in a word cloud on the screen. So please remember, as I mentioned before, that if you want to submit all 3 words or all 3 responses, that you should put them all in at the same time and then go ahead and submit them together. So once you hit submit, you will not be able to respond to the question again. So before we provide you with any more information on the housing element, and before Jesse proceeds with just an overview of the housing element and the update process, we just want to know kind of what you like best about your city or your community. Whether that's people, place, really just anything. I see neighbors is a big one. I think that's a great response. We all love our neighbors, and so it's nice to know that we live in an area with a strong sense of community. Safety is very important here. It looks like the small town atmosphere is very important as well to people. I believe I see quiet and beaches. Beaches are incredibly important. I think Coronado is very known for its beaches. So looks like we have a lot of good responses. Friendly, yeah, that's a big one. And just a reminder, as we send in our responses, the more of the similar or same response that we receive, it will show up in larger words on the screen. So it looks like a lot of people on the call today are really happy with and really love their neighbors. So that's awesome. Yeah, we have a couple more about architecture and accessibility, which are all very important to community. Pretty, I would agree. Coronado is very pretty. And I see weather, good weather. These are all great. I think before we had somewhere between 14 to 17 responses. So I'll give it a little bit more time so people can fill in some thoughtful answers. Pride in the community and excellent schools. Yeah, both great responses. All right, it looks like we're at about 15. So with that, oh, a couple more. Some more safety, some more pretty. Unique, I like that one. That's a good one. I think Coronado is a unique community. All right, these are great. If you haven't responded and you respond after I stop sharing my screen, your responses will still be recorded. So just remember that. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it back over to Jesse to continue with the presentation.
Great, thanks, Molly. Let me get this back here. Yeah, Coronado definitely is unique and beautiful, and one of my favorite things is all the various architecture throughout town when you're just driving down the various streets. It's great. Okay, so now we wanted to get started with an overview of what exactly is a housing element. So each city and county in California is required to have a general plan, which is more or less a blueprint of the city's goals for the future. And each general plan is required to have 7 elements, one of those being the housing element. However, the housing element is the only element that is required to be updated by the state every so often. The housing element looks at various housing needs for the city, and it identifies sites to meet those needs, including future affordable housing needs. It outlines housing goals, programs, and policies for the city. And lastly, the city's housing element must be reviewed and certified by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD. Each housing element is required to include baseline conditions for population and housing, look at constraints and resources for building new housing, and assess programs and policies of the previous housing element. And of great importance to the city this year is the identification of sites to accommodate future housing growth, or the RHNA, which during this cycle has increased over 1,800% compared to the last cycle. And we'll discuss that in a little greater detail later on in this presentation. And also the new housing element will update various policies and programs to achieve the city's housing goals and the state's housing goals. A lot of you may be asking, why is the city updating this housing element? For one, it is a state requirement to update the element every 8 years. And recently the state has started to take cities without a certified element to court, including Encinitas and Huntington Beach. It's also good for the city to pause and check its pulse in terms of ability to meet future housing needs, whether the city has updated its codes to be compliant with current state housing laws, whether it allows and it also allows the community to have a say in future housing policy. And like I said earlier, having a certified housing element makes the city applicable for state grants and funding resources not available to those without a certified element. The State Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, is required to review the city's housing element update, and they will certify it if it is found to be in compliance with the applicable state laws. And for the benefits, we've covered a few of these already, but it also helps the city to avoid fines or penalties that sometimes the state likes to dole out. And I just wanted to take a second to remind everybody, if you have any questions, to use the Q&A tab on Zoom, and then we'll try and answer those in the end. Again, the Q&A tab you should be able to find on your Zoom toolbox, and thank you. So at this point, we're going to talk about Coronado's demographics and existing housing. I believe, is Dave here?
Yes, I am. Hi, Jesse.
How are you, Dave?
Good. And thank you for all the public for participating in this. And, you know, the housing element is an expression of policy for the future. And in order to look into the future, we have to know where we are today, right? It sets the foundation of our understanding. And as part of the housing element, we do a demographic profile where we look at what the population housing characteristics of the community and how future growth will implicate or influence change over time and our policies would reflect that. So as a starting point, we want to look at what you as a community are today and will be into the future. And so we're providing you with a number of slides that just give you a snapshot of what your community is today, a profile, if you will. Mind you, this information is going to be part of the housing element, and a detailed description of all of this information will be available to the public. It would be posted on the city's website on the housing element portion of that website. So look forward to getting that information that will be uploaded. So let's just walk through some of this in the community. You see on the left, population growth in Coronado. You see over time, you have some fluctuations of what the population is. Generally speaking, for the next number of years, the population is fairly flat. And based on 2015 projections, while the number looks like it's a large increase, it's a fairly modest increase over time. So population in Coronado is not exploding, if you will, over in the last few years or into the future. And of that population, you see on the right of your screen, what is the age distribution in your community? Much of your population is age 45 or older. So looking at the retirement age population, people who are in the sunsets of their career, for example, are enjoying the community. But what you also have to notice in that graphic that you see is there's a large portion or an equal amount of that population who are under 34 years old. That is your future homeowners and your future home buyers in your community that will transition over those different cohorts of age over time. The next slide. So we look at when housing was built in your community. The majority of housing was built prior to 1980. You see from the post-war period up and through 1980 is where you saw most of your housing unit growth. And over since that time, you see a steady increase on an a yearly basis of new construction. And that tells us a lot of things. Of the 10,884 units that exist as of the last few years, the newer houses coming onto the market have been less and less on a year-over-year basis. Most of the families in your community are family households. Almost 60% are comprised of family households. Next slide. And depending on how you look at it, Coronado enjoys a higher average median home value. So if you look at it in comparison to the county, you're right there at the top in comparison. So you see the challenges that come with that, maybe the affordability and the access to housing in your community. When it comes to housing, you also have renter opportunities and ownership opportunities. You're almost split 50-50 on those housing units in your community. They're renter occupied versus owner occupied. And then we look at housing vacancy. Obviously, when we walk around the neighborhoods and see all the folks living in all the homes in your community, there are some that are vacant. Not much of them, but much of those vacancies are related to seasonal or recreational uses. And so the vacancy issue related to for sale or renter occupied units is fairly low in comparison to the region, but fairly high in comparison to the seasonal recreational use. And that's because of the nature of your community being close to the beach and with the great resources you have in your community. There are a number of folks in your community that are current residents that live elsewhere. So about 19% of your population own those residents that live outside of the area. And so the question is, this is another question we'll have to participate to ask, and I'll turn it back over, is how applicable are the globes below to Coronado today and for the future?
Thanks, Dave. So I will go ahead and hop back in from here, share my screen again, and just a really quick recap on that last question that we answered. We got a few more responses, and a lot of those pertain to walkability and beaches, that safe and friendly environment that people had mentioned before. So just to show you those responses that we got in while you were not able to see this word cloud. So we'll go ahead and go to this next question that Dave had brought up. So on the screen here are the existing housing element goals that were developed for the current planning cycle. So through 2021. So just take some time and read through these and go ahead and rate them based on how applicable you feel they are to Coronado today and also for Coronado's future. So as you read these, you can rate them each on a scale of 1 to 4. So 1 being maybe not so applicable. 2 is maybe the goal is somewhat applicable today, but maybe you think that it's not so applicable in the future. 3 would be that it's applicable for Coronado currently, and maybe it's applicable in the future. And this is something that's important to you and maybe important to the community, and you'd like to keep that as a goal for the future. And then there's 4, which is the highest, and this would be that the goal on the screen is very applicable to the city, both today and you believe it will remain applicable for the future. And this is a very important goal to keep. So go ahead and rate each goal. And as before, your results will show up live on the screen. And your feedback in this portion is really important to the city. They'll take into account these responses and developing goals for the upcoming housing element, so that 2021 to 2029 period. And these will help shape Coronado's future housing goals. So this is kind of long-term, look at these, kind of digest them, think about, what do we want Coronado to look like now for the people that are living in it? And then think about your children or maybe your grandchildren and what might you want housing in Coronado to look like for them in the future. As Dave mentioned before, there's a number of the population that is, in that young adult range, that future home buyer range. And, what kind of programs and what kind of policies and goals do we want the city to have for those future residents? And we'll allow a little bit of extra time here. I know there's a lot of reading, and I will pause speaking to let people digest everything that's on here, and we'll talk through the results in a moment. It looks like we're getting up there on our responses, closer to that number that we were seeing before for participants. It looks like it's really important to encourage that conservation and maintain current housing stock. So, if that's historic housing, if that's just existing housing for residents that live here, maintaining, the quality and the use of that current housing is really important to everyone today. Looks like we're also interested in providing a broad range of housing opportunities. So, there's different housing types that a city can offer, that the free market can offer. And, sometimes that's single family housing, sometimes that's multifamily housing. And there are a lot of different ways to provide housing to a community and especially to different sectors of a community. So, providing that broad range of housing, it looks like it's fairly important to our community today on the workshop. And it looks like we're almost at that number of participants that we had before. So I'll leave this on for just like maybe 30 more seconds. There we go, one more response. And one more reminder again that, even if I stop sharing my screen, your results are still going to be recorded and will still be available in the future. So with that, thank you guys so much for participating in the polling tool. Again, like we mentioned before, like Jesse mentioned and Dave mentioned, your participation here is really important for the future of Coronado, for developing those goals and policies for the future of housing in your city. So thank you so much, and I will pass it back over to Jesse to continue giving you some more information about the housing element update.
Thanks, Molly. Forgot to unmute myself there. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA, as we will refer to it. And I just want to take another quick second to remind everybody to please use the Q&A feature to ask questions. It looks like we have 6 questions in there, and you're also able to upvote the questions that you agree with and would like to get answered, though we will try to answer everything. So what is RHNA? The RHNA quantifies future growth needs for the next planning cycle, which is based on population, employment, and housing. And each cycle is approximately 8 years. The state determines an overall housing number for each region, which for San Diego was 171,685 units. SANDAG was then in charge of distributing those 171,000 units throughout the various jurisdictions within the county. And Coronado ended up with a total of 912 units that we have to show capacity for. What this means is that Coronado would have to show zoning capacity for at least 912 new units above what exists today. It does not mean that the city has to build these units or have them built. Again, we just have to show the capacity for these units via zoning of property within the city. We wanted to look a little more closely at the process that SANDAG went through to assign Coronado those 912 units. So they created a RENA subcommittee and decided to divide the region's 171,000 units based on each jurisdiction's share of regional transit services and jobs. So they looked at bus stops, rail stops, the number of jobs within each jurisdiction. And we also think there's an important note here that this was the first time that they had ever decided to include military jobs in this calculation. We think that's one of the reasons that our numbers are significantly inflated this time around. In November of last year, SANDAG finalized their methodology and they issued a draft allocation for each jurisdiction. Coronado was originally assigned 1,001 units. I'm sure you all have heard that number around town, that Coronado is going to be forced to build 1,000 units at this time. But the city appealed those draft allocations, as well as three other cities, which was Imperial Beach, Solana Beach, and Lemon Grove. Those appeals went back to the SANDAG board, where they voted on, and 14 of the 19 jurisdictions on the board voted to grant the appeals. However, a weighted vote was called for by, I believe it was Chula Vista or National City, and the weighted vote was called for. And so a vote of 5 board members on a 19-member board carried the vote, and the appeal was denied for all 4 jurisdictions. Unfortunately, that means that we're stuck with the number that SANDAG gave us. Part of what they looked at in the final numbers there is they did an adjustment on jobs. They counted a small portion of San Diego to Coronado, so that 1,001 units was reduced to 912. While we don't agree with the board and how that went down, Coronado, as well as Imperial Beach, Solana Beach, and Lemon Grove, have filed a lawsuit against SANDAG, challenging their weighted vote. Regardless, though, we have to continue with this update process. So we're continuing to move forward. We will move forward with our schedule. The state has a deadline of April of next year to have something adopted. So we are still working towards that goal, even though we have filed a lawsuit against SANDAG related to this. So Coronado's 912 units get further divided into various income categories shown here. And this is all based on the San Diego County median family income for the San Diego region, which is $92,700, and that gets updated yearly. So this gives you a general idea of how the city will have to break down. We'll have to identify sites to accommodate these units and then assign various affordability levels to those sites. We also wanted to highlight the differences between the RENA from the last cycle to this cycle. Previously, Coronado was assigned 50 units for that 8-year cycle that is ending this year, early next year. Coronado had to show capacity for 50 units. That's a very small number compared to the 912 that has been assigned this cycle. That's over an 1,800% increase. It'll be a challenge, to say the least, to show the capacity for that without significant changes to Coronado. Okay, so on to our next steps. We wanted to just kind of provide everybody tonight with a little background information on what all of this is, why the city is moving forward with this. But now we want to highlight where we are in that process and what our next steps are. We plan to hold an additional workshop with more specific details on what will be included in the element. Such as specific sites, various policies and programs that the city would like to push forward. We will also provide online community surveys. We will identify sites to accommodate the RENA, and we will also hold public hearings before the Planning Commission and the City Council prior to submitting to the state for certification. So there'll be lots of opportunity for public input and feedback. Here's a tentative schedule. We're kind of all the way on the left here. You can see we'll be starting with a survey today, which I'll outline in just a minute. We have an upcoming study session, public review of the draft housing element, another workshop and survey, and then the public hearings to adopt the housing element update. So we wanted to take this opportunity to highlight a new public engagement website the city has debuted this week. The city has created commentcoronado.org, which you can kind of see some screenshots here. It was just with COVID and everything going on, and you know, we really appreciate everybody's input and feedback, and it's kind of hard to do that without being able to meet in person. So the city invested a lot of time in creating this specific website just for public engagement. And it debuted just this week. So this website will be a place for information and feedback on city projects. We have launched it starting with 3 different projects, but we plan to expand what is included and hope you all will check it out. It's live right now, so please visit commentcoronado.com. I'm going to try and show you here real quick if it'll cooperate. Hopefully you all can see that. So this is the Comment Coronado website. This is the specific housing element web page. So we will keep this page updated. You can register for the website. You can add your email here to get specific information to the housing element. We have our schedule here that shows where we are in the process. There's my contact information here. There's various documents here that you can read to get up to speed on what's going on. We highlight ways to get involved, but really what we hope, actually there's a small quick poll down here as well that we're hoping we can get some community response to. Most importantly though, we have a survey tool right here that we're hoping everybody will go ahead and take this survey. It's a very quick, I haven't signed in, doesn't show up, but it's quick. I believe 10 questions, shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes, and it'll really help us move forward with this, this housing element update. So we just wanted to take that second there to show you this website. It's commentcoronado.org. And like I said, please go navigate there and take that survey. We'd really appreciate it. We're hoping to get as many responses as we can. I've lost my mouse. At least we got this far without too many glitches. But anyway, like I said, we're hoping to get as many responses to that survey as possible. So if you could take that survey and ask your friends and family to take it as well, we would appreciate that. Let me try and get this working again. I'm not sure. There we go. So like I said, the survey will help guide some of the goals and policies and programs that will be included in the upcoming element, and it will give feedback that the city will really need to produce a plan that reflects the community's desires and also tries to achieve the state goals. So that went pretty quickly. We wanted to devote some time to answer anybody's questions tonight. So let's see what we have in here. We have a staff member who will basically moderate and read out these questions. And then after this, I can provide everybody my contact information. You also noticed it was on that Comment Coronado website. So if you want to get more in depth on some of these questions, or you have specific questions that you didn't want to bring up tonight and you want to discuss, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. We're here to hear your concerns and questions and try and create a plan that best represents the community. So looking in here, it looks like we have about 9 questions or so. And so I think if Molly or Jane wants to kind of start asking, we'll dig into some of these.
Yes, I'll jump in here and start asking the questions. Hopefully we'll have time to get through as many of these as possible. And just a reminder, if you upvote or like a question, it moves it towards the top. So I'll kind of start reading the questions that are most upvoted, and then also try to, if people have submitted multiple questions and you're from the same participant, we may try to mix it up and just make sure that we answer as many as we can from different folks. But hopefully we'll get through all of them. So the first question is about ADUs, and the question is, in addition to property design plans, what are the requirements for permitting an ADU that would be constructed above a detached garage?
Sure, yeah, so ADUs will definitely play a big part in this housing element update. Luckily, we are able to count anticipated future ADU development in the city to reach that 912 number. We have to kind of show some work for the state to justify the number we come up with. But in terms of allowing ADUs, they are currently not allowed above a garage, a detached garage. Those are limited to 1 story. So that may be something that comes out through this policy discussion, through the public outreach, and through the various city council meetings. That could be some direction that city council gives staff, is look at allowing ADUs to be constructed above a garage, or even allow for the conversion of carriage houses in an effort to, to really shoot for that 912 number. So that will be something that we will explore through the process and receive direction from our city council on.
Great, thanks, Jesse. And a related question that just came in, but goes really well with this is, I thought ADUs don't apply to RENA allocation. Is that true?
No, ADUs do count towards RENA allocation. Like I said, we have to kind of show some work to HCD. We have to show them kind of historical permits. How many have we received in 2018, 2019? How many have we received 2020? Kind of look at those projections and come up with a number that the state will buy. So we can definitely count ADUs towards our RENA number.
Okay. The next most upvoted question is actually a comment. Have council advocate state legislation to modify SANDAG weighted vote formula?
Yeah, I believe that is something that we are doing in addition to our legal challenge against SANDAG. I know we're exploring all ways we can to help the city maintain, what we all love about it, what we answered in that question earlier.
Yeah. Next question is, how is the $7,000 in lieu affordable housing fee determined? I think it would make sense to increase that fee or make it applicable to SFR development to provide more funding for affordable housing.
Yeah, that's a great comment. One of the first things I noticed when I started working for the city of Coronado is that $7,000 fee and how it was pretty low compared to the cost of housing units here in town. That was created through, I think it was in the 80s it was originally created. In the 90s it was updated, but it hasn't been updated since. That is definitely something that's on the city's radar to explore. If somebody is building 3 units and selling them each for $2 million, of course they're going to cut a check for $21,000 to not have to deal with affordable housing. So that's something that we will want to look at. And like I said, ever since I started here, that's been on my radar to increase.
Okay. And I just want to jump in real quick and say, I see that somebody has their hand up. So if you could please throw your question into the Q&A, that's where we'll read them from, just as a reminder. But the next question so far is, did SANDAG include military employment numbers in their allocation formula and not include military housing units?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. That's a good question. So that's kind of where our heartburn is too, is they're forcing, these new military employment numbers on us, but they're not letting us count the existing housing units that are provided to military families. So we feel like we're kind of getting in on both ends here, where our RENA number is increasing because of the addition of the military jobs, but we're not able to count these units that have never been counted before in RENA. And also, they're now asking us to basically provide housing for military families who already are provided housing by the Navy. So that's kind of our rub with this as well.
Yeah, and on a very related note, we have a comment and question that says, the military job inclusion should mean the active participation of land use of the naval base as well as the Coronado city land area. The increase of units should be altered because of the military jobs for the area of the Coronado city. can this be continued to be opposed as is?
Yeah, we've up until the board vote, the SANDAG board vote, we were trying to make that argument. We were trying to, look at any way we could to help lessen our number and lessen the impact that the military jobs has on the city. They specifically said that we would not be able to count existing military units towards that. If we wanted to work with the Navy and explore, are they planning any additional units in the next 8 years that they plan to build on North Island or NAB, and maybe there's a way we could work with them to count those towards our arena. But working with the Navy always takes quite a bit of time, and so that is definitely something we're exploring. Like I said, we understand this is a huge change for Coronado. A lot of people probably don't want to accommodate 912 units. So the city understands that. They understand the residents and council's concerns, and we're doing everything we can through all different avenues to try and address that. So, we tried at, the staff level through SANDAG, we tried at the board level through the appeals. Now we're trying it through, the challenge against SANDAG, the legal challenge. So we are not just accepting this number. We still have to work towards adopting this element, but like I said, we are doing everything we can to kind of tamper down that number.
Okay, and Jesse, you mentioned SANDAG. A participant is wondering if it's possible to break away from SANDAG.
I don't think so. SANDAG is a regional planning agency for the entire county, basically. They control a lot of the grant and funding for money. They prepare a lot of regional plans that affect various cities. So, I mean, regardless, the state issues an overall number for the region, that 171,000 unit number, and then SANDAG is just the one that I believe it's written into state law that the regional planning agencies are the ones to divide up that RENA among the various jurisdictions. So I do not believe it's a possibility for us to branch off from SANDAG.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. So if the city is required to go forward with the 912 units, will zoning change to allow building higher up?
That's something we're currently exploring right now. I have the lucky job of going through every single parcel in the city and seeing what's on there and how much density is left over to figure out what our baseline capacity is today. Once we have that number, we will have a much better idea of, what is that gap that we need to fill? How many units do we need to show to meet that 912? And that will be all fleshed out through the public process in front of our planning commission and city council. And, we'll probably get more questions like that we would pose to the community when we get into our second survey and workshop.
Okay. The next question that's been upvoted is, if it is true that state law currently prohibits the use of floor area ratio to deny a permit, what restrictions would a project be subject to?
Well, I think what that question is referring to is the new state accessory dwelling unit, or ADU laws, where the law states that cities have to allow up to an 800 square foot ADU, regardless of FAR or site coverage. Where'd the question go? Oh, there it is. So, I mean, we still believe, the city still believes that our development standards are applicable to these projects, except where they're expressly prohibited by the state. One of the areas that we have figured out a way to require parking. The state laws talk a lot about parking exemptions for ADUs, or converting garages and not providing replacement parking to establish an ADU. But the ADU law goes on to talk about how it has to still be consistent and compliant with the Coastal Act, which does require parking. So because the city is 100% within the coastal zone, we were able to draft an ordinance that required parking for all ADUs, as well as replacement parking. So that is one of the areas where we can still require certain development standards to be met.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have a few questions about vacancy rates, so I'll focus on those questions. One question is, there's a 23% vacancy rate for housing units in town based on data from the existing housing element. Can we please explore ways to reduce this, such as the use of a vacancy tax, such as what is being implemented in San Francisco? This high rate is making housing availability scarce and affordability difficult.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's kind of when we get into the policy discussion as we move through this process. That would definitely, a vacancy tax is definitely a way that various jurisdictions have used to, tamp down on second, third, fourth home ownerships. Really, because those kind of eat into the community and what a lot of people love about Coronado and that neighborhood feel. And, it's different when you drive down the street and only a handful of houses have people living in them year round. So that is definitely something that we can explore. And, I would encourage whoever asked that question to, as you take surveys and you go through the process, just, include that as one of your recommendations for the city to look at, and we will explore that and leave that up to our city council to provide us direction.
Okay, and then a couple more vacancy questions. On the vacancy slide that showed occasional use, does that include or reflect the number of second homes in Coronado that are only occupied part-time?
I believe it does. If Dave, can you clarify that it does?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay,
And we'll
great.
do further analysis in the housing element related to that issue. So you'll have a more robust discussion of that in the housing element.
And the last comment about vacancy, and this one's a comment, not a question, but the comment is, if vacancy rates reflect the number of second homes with only part-time use, a vacancy tax would negatively affect resale of homes. So that's, again, something that could be commented on the survey as well. But if Jesse or Dave have any additional comments to that.
Yeah, I think, that's kind of the opposite of that other question that we just read, where they were looking at adding a vacancy tax. So that shows the importance of processing this through the public realm and through the public hearings at our city council, where they will provide us direction based on input they receive from their constituents here in town.
Okay. And our next question is, has the city conducted a survey of housing needs of city and school district employees, the school district, fire department, police department, hospital, etc.?
Not specifically. I mean, with the survey that we sent out, or that we introduced today, we've done a lot of stakeholder outreach. We've reached out to the schools, we've reached out to the hospital. Of course, we've reached out within the city. So our hope is to capture all of their comments and concerns and ideas through those surveys, and kind of get a handle on if, because those are the types of jobs where, a lot of people think of affordable housing and they don't realize, like, these are teachers, these are people that work for your local jurisdiction that, obviously can't afford to live in Coronado, but, they're not broke. And so there's those different affordability levels that, can contribute to your community and really kind of expand those demographics that you see here in town. So.
Yeah, and related to affordable housing, I mean, we have a comment that more affordable housing should be built elsewhere, but we also have a question about why is there resistance to providing additional housing. So this again shows that people have different perspectives on housing and where it should be built, and that's why your feedback is important, and the council's direction will determine some of that.
Yeah, and I think part of the resistance is, 1,000 units, that's a big number, and that's hard for people to envision. Where are they going to go? What is that going to do, to my neighborhood? Or driving down Orange Avenue, what is that going to do to the community character of Coronado that everybody has grown to love? It doesn't mean that the city doesn't want to build these units. I mean, the city has, hundreds of affordable units right now. We want to encourage that. It's just a matter of how those get developed and what that does to the character of Coronado in terms of the built environment.
Yeah, thanks for addressing that, Jesse. And we just have a few last questions here. So What happens to RENA if our lawsuit is supported by the courts?
That's a good question, and that's probably one that I would want to ask our city attorney. I'm not 100% sure what would happen if that was the case. I know what we challenged was the legality of the weighted vote on an appeal. So I believe what would happen is if the court sided with the cities, that it would get kicked back to SANDAG, and they'd have to do maybe they would have to rehold the appeal hearing and not use a weighted vote and see the outcome. It will be interesting because we are working towards that deadline with the state in April of next year. So I'm not sure when this will make it through the courts and what the outcome will be, unfortunately.
And just a couple more questions, and we want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if you do have any more questions, please go ahead and put them into the box and upvote the ones that you would like to be answered here in the last couple minutes. But if we don't, for some reason, get to your question this evening, please feel free to reach out to Jesse or through commentcoronado.org, and we will be sure to answer everything that way. But for the questions that are up there now and have been uploaded, the next question is, how many square feet is needed for a unit to qualify as a part of the 912 units?
Oh man, there's I believe the building code identifies the minimum square footage of an efficiency unit, and I can't recall if it's 150 or 220 square feet. It's very small. It's like half of a garage. The state law on ADUs talks about the efficiency unit size, but there's a distinction between junior accessory dwelling units and regular accessory dwelling units. And the junior ones are those considered under 500 square feet. So some of these units can be pretty small. A lot of the guest houses that exist in people's backyards could be converted and would meet the minimum dimensions and size to be a dwelling unit.
Great. And can you clarify if the Navy is a part of SANDAG?
They are not. The Navy is a federal agency, and SANDAG is made up of local regional agencies.
Okay, and the final two questions, I think that's probably the last two that we have time for, is can you comment about the implications of SB 35?
Yeah, and I may ask Dave to jump in and help me a little bit here, but currently Coronado has been able to meet and provide our annual housing element updates to the state and show that we are working towards meeting our existing RENA towards that 50, not the 912. And so we've been lucky to not be put on that list to require streamlined processing of multiple family units. That may change, if we're forced to move forward with this 912 units, and maybe 5 years down the road, if we're not able to hit some of the milestones that the state is looking for, some of that SB 35 may kick in for Coronado. But as of now, we haven't been subject to that.
And
is there
then
anything you'd want to add, Dave?
Sure, the implications of that. And then we'd be happy for those folks that are on the call today. We'll post this information on the project website so you can provide your own research. But generally speaking, as part of the Housing Accountability and Affordability Act by the state, which is new state law coming from Sacramento that will apply to Coronado. And essentially what this is it's streamlining. So what happens is if a jurisdiction such as Coronado is not meeting their goals or performing their RENA obligations over time, what will kick in is different streamlining requirements to allow or encourage it to be easier to develop a housing if it hasn't. It's very tiered. There's specific requirements of the process and applications that we don't have time to get in tonight, exceptions, etc. But essentially, in a nutshell, it means that if the city is not performing on the construction or development of those RENA units over the planning period, it will kick in different provisions and different restrictions, different requirements that the city must follow to encourage a faster pace of meeting those numbers. So we'll be happy to provide you with a link on the website to give you the specific details in a fact sheet or whatever's appropriate for you.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And it looks like, we have about 4 minutes left and 2 questions. So I think we'll get through these 2 questions, and I'll provide my contact information to anybody that wants to reach out to me, and we'll go from there. So, Jane?
And a couple questions that we answered via text is related to if the presentation will be posted. And just again, a reminder that the presentation will be posted to commentcoronado.org early next week, and that will be available to anybody that would like to see it before they take the survey as well. And we'll try to put a FAQ together. But these last 2 questions are pretty similar. They're both about where you can put some of these housing units. So the first one is, has the city looked into working with the Navy to build housing units on the Navy golf course next to the country club? And maybe you can answer together with the second question, would it be possible to build these 912 units on a part of the Tidelands Park?
Sure. So I personally have not discussed building housing units on the Navy's golf course on Senior, but that is definitely something that we can explore. And where'd that other question go, Gene? I believe it was about building the units on Tidelands Park. Tidelands Park is controlled by the Port of San Diego. That's their jurisdiction. And part of their thing is no residential units are allowed in port property. So putting units on Tidelands property would not be an option for the city.
And there's also a final comment about, too bad there's not a thank acknowledgement button. Great job, guys. And we really appreciate hearing that from you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we wanted to, so thank you everybody for coming tonight and asking your questions. Like I said, we're just starting this process. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for more public participation, for more of your questions to be heard and answered, and to hear your ideas on how to move forward with the plan. Please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is all here. My phone, 619-522-2415. Feel free to shoot me an email. Also, just reach out to the Community Development Department if you can't find this information, and they can all get you in touch with me. And yeah, we're embarking on this journey together. We don't agree with what SANDAG and the state have assigned to Coronado. We don't agree with the way that the appeals process went down. We are currently challenging that, but like I said, we still have to work forward to meet this housing element deadline of April. So I just want to thank everybody again for joining us tonight, and we hope you'll continue to participate in the process, and please go fill out that survey on commentcoronado.org. We would really appreciate it. And with that, I think doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and look forward to working with you. Thank you. Take care. We're going to end the webinar now.